Hi, today I'm going to build a report in FRX that I build for a lot of my clients. Some of my clients even call it the Belinda report. It's a report that is part balance sheet, part P&L, all combined on one, and the purpose is to balance other reports with it. Or if your CPA does your write-up work for you, it's a great report to give your CPA as a worksheet, or an auditor as a worksheet. So let's build the report now. We're going to go to row formats and create a new row format. And we'll start by creating a description called assets. And then we're just going to use the insert field to add all asset accounts. And we'll just use the natural account segment. And I'll add everything that falls within the natural account range and click OK. And now all my assets are added. Now since these are assets, the normal balance should all be debit, even if it is accumulated depreciation. So I'm going to get rid of all C's in the print control column, or normal balance column, sorry. And then we will put an underline, so we'll underscore amounts, and underneath that we'll have a total assets line. And I will add everything from my description column, which is row 100, to the underscore line, which is 1840. And that covers all my assets. I'll put a blank line here. Then underneath that, I'm going to have a line for liabilities, oops, gotta spell it right, and equity. So we'll give that a description line. And under that, we'll add, from the chart of accounts, all liability and equity account numbers. Now, keeping in mind that GP does not track net profit line or year-to-date profit line, we're going to have to account for that. And again, since the liability and equity accounts should always be a credit balance, we're going to want to make sure that they're all marked as a C. Oops. And you can use copy and paste for this if you do it right. And so we want to make sure they're all C's, and it looks like they are. Bravo. So we'll add a couple more blank lines here. And I just use the down arrow key to do that. So I'm going to put another underscore amounts. And I'll put total liabilities and equity. And again, this is a tot, or total. So I'll find my description line, my title line. It's row 1930. So I'll enter from 1930 to 4480, which is my underscore line. Then I will put another underscore of amounts. And underneath that, I will put in my year-to-date net profit. And again, this is a total. This is where I'm going to take my total assets, which is 1870, and I will subtract my total liabilities, which is 1410. And that will yield me my net profit line. And now I will double underscore the amounts here. I will put a couple blank lines. Just typing in description, and then I'll enter description for revenue accounts. So I'm going to then add all my revenue lines. Now you do have to understand how your accounts are structured to do this, and they should be structured in a logical order anyhow. So here are all my revenue accounts, and again, revenue accounts have a typical balance of a credit, so we're going to want to make sure that they're all credits. And they may not be, because we may have some adjustments to revenue there, and we want them to show as a credit balance, so that if they're a debit balance, meaning it's reducing sales, it'll show up as a negative number, and if it's a sales line, meaning it's increasing sales, it'll show up as a positive number. I'm going to underscore my revenue accounts and put in, oops, I want that to say total revenue. Let's start again. I want this to say total revenue. Good thing it's not a typing class. And I will make this a tot to total other rows. And again, I want to start with my header line, which is 4690. So 4690 to the underscore line, which is 6490. I will put a blank line here, and now I'm going to have a line for my expenses. And I will add all my expenses in. they all start with a 5 and they'll go through 99.99. Now again, expenses should be debit accounts, so we want to make sure that we do not see any C's here. And we may see some because the way we've added these accounts in, we have included a potential for some other income accounts, so we want to deal with those. You're also going to notice that if you have unit accounts, and depending on where you have them, they're going to appear too. I'm going to leave the unit accounts out here for right now, but you'd want to get rid of them. And the reason I'm leaving them out here is because I want there to be a discrepancy. I want this report to show out of balance so you can see why it's a valuable report. So I'm going to underscore the amounts here and write total expenses. And again, we'll start with the header row for expenses, 6580, to the underscore row, which is, and the reason I go to the underscore row is because that enables me to add to the very end if I want to, which is one of the purposes of this report, so that I can make sure that all my accounts are included everywhere in the system. Okay, so now let's put in a year-to-date net profit. Now this time we're going to calculate it based on the P&L accounts. So we want to find the total revenue line, which is 6520. So we have 6520 minus our expense line 10540, which we got right there. Okay, and let's double underscore that. I'm going to put a space here, and now what I'm going to do, now that I've calculated my year-to-date net profit from the balance sheet and year-to-date net profit from the expense account, let's create a line that says out of balance, which is another calculation that takes my year-to-date net profit from my balance sheet account, which is row 4570 minus the net profit from my P&L accounts, which is 10,600. And what this is going to do for me is it's going to then, I now made it big and red, so if I'm missing an account number anywhere in the system, I'm going to end up with an out of balance here. So otherwise, I want to come in and tell it that I don't want it to print if it's 0. So I'm going to say suppress if all zeros, and then under the print control, and then that way it won't print if there's no big red out of balance at the bottom, it won't print, and if there is an out of balance, it's a good visual cue. You could go through and make the subtotals and the titles look a lot nicer just by changing some of the font style. Okay, so let's save this work and give it a name. We'll just call it the Belinda report. I'll just leave a description off for now. Okay, so let's look at the column layouts then. So what we're going to do, we have a year-to-date and month-to-date column. I'm going to open that up. And I've got a column for year-to-date and month-to-date. And I also am putting in this fill. And that way I have a column with just a line on there for changes. And actually, let me make that say changes. And then I have a column at the end that says new balance. And I want to do the same thing here. So just put a column with blank lines in it so that if we give this report to the CPA, they can fill it out accordingly and use it as a worksheet. Otherwise, we don't have to put these columns on there. So I'll select fill from the type. And then what I'm going to do is come up to the line, like the address line, put a space, and in quotation marks, put an underline so that it knows to underline all the way across. So I'm just going to close that out and save it. So let's create a catalog of report and put these pieces together. So we'll click on new, and we're going to call this the Belinda report. We'll just call it Belinda. And we'll select our row format. We'll select our column layout, and let's save it and print it. Now again, this report has two big purposes. One, it verifies everything's in balance. You can see how nice it would look if you put in some better labeling. You've got your blank lines in there as well, so you could give this to CPA as a summary trial balance for month to date and year to date. You can see your net profit line, month to date and year to date. And as we scroll down, you can see that we're out of balance, and I happen to know that the out of balance difference is because we have included unit accounts. But had we excluded the unit accounts, we would not be seeing that. So this report provides a tremendous amount of value by comparing information, making sure that all your accounts exist, and then you could utilize each section of this report to compare to other reports. So it's a wonderful balancing report. It's also a wonderful report to give to your CPA. And if you're using FRX for no other report, at least do this one, because you can see all your information as it goes along. Great. I hope this helps. Thanks.